All right, so let's start this broadcast with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. And this is about China and its expansion. It happens to be the world's second largest nation in terms of population. It is also the second largest in terms of the size of its economy. It's also amongst the top 5 in terms of its geographical area. But Beijing's hunger for more land seems to be almost unending. And its intention is quite clear in terms of the maps that it continues to release. And the latest map that's been released by China has evoked strong protests from its neighbors. The protests against this new Chinese map were launched for a very simple but a very serious reason. In its latest edition, China has chosen to show territories of its neighbors as part of its own territories. Now, India was, of course, the first nation to lodge a strong protest and has rejected these Chinese maps. The Nepalese foreign minister was the second one to speak out, and now Malaysia and Philippines have also followed suit. China published its latest version of its national map on Monday, and the exercise, remember, is a regular one, at least since 2006. Now, Beijing says that these maps depicting China's territorial extent are meant to correct what it has in the past referred to as problematic maps that it claims misrepresent its territorial borders. Now, starting with the Philippines, Manila in fact rejected the new Chinese map because of its inclusion of a dashed line around areas of the South China Sea that the Philippines claims are actually its territorial waters. The territories claimed by China in the new map were subject to an international tribunal ruling in 2016 that was in favor of Manila. Now, Malaysia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also dismissed the unilateral claims made by China in its new map. The statement further added that Malaysia is consistent in its position of rejecting any foreign party's claims to its sovereign rights and its territory, and also its jurisdiction on its maritime features. The Nepalese government also has got some serious reservations with Chinese maps. But Kathmandu has said that it will make its views public after holding a dialogue with China. And finally, the new map shows India's state of Arunachal Pradesh and also Aksai Chin, part of Ladakh, as part of China. Now, India has time and again rejected the Chinese claims over these territories. The two countries have locked horns over the disputed border for decades now. Remember, just 3 years ago, the dispute had resulted in deadly clashes in the Galwan Valley, where both India and China, in fact, suffered casualties. The situation remains tense ever since. Now, just last week, the leaders of the two countries met on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in South Africa. The border issues reportedly dominated the talks, where both sides have called for a speedy disengagement on friction points. However, China has made its intentions pretty clear by releasing its latest edition of its map. It's also being reported that President Xi Jinping is likely to skip the upcoming G20 summit next week, which is being hosted by India in New Delhi. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we're being joined by Ambassador Dilip Sinha, who's India's former permanent representative to the United Nations, and the former Indian ambassador is in fact joining us live from New Delhi. Now, Ambassador Sinha, China, as we all know, plays the long game. It has been making its territorial claims on territories that it does not even control. What do you make of this new map that the Chinese have released?
This is part of China's old policy of cartographic aggression. China starts in a very gentle manner. It releases a map. If it sees a strong objection to it, then it says that it's a misunderstanding and should be ignored. And then when it finds a better opportunity, it then goes ahead and re-releases the map. And Chinese maps are not really the end of its claims. If China wants more territory, then it will declare the old map to be an old map and say that now we have issued a revised map, which is the correct map. So if you go back over the last 70 years, you find China's cartographic claims have been increasing. Now, I feel that even this map of just claiming only Aksai Chin and Arunachal is really a mild form, because their great leader Mao had actually claimed 5 fingers in the Himalayas, which included all of Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, and Arunachal. So China claims right up to the southern slopes of the Himalayas at different times. And right now, of course, it is not in a position to claim these. So it's claiming a very relatively small amount of territory. China actually claims that it has inherited the entire empire of the Manchus.
Right.
So any territory ever controlled by the Manchu Empire, it says belongs to China.
Very interesting. Now, India, of course, rejected the Chinese claims yesterday, and now we see more protests coming in from the Philippines and Malaysia. Is there something that can in fact be done, sir, in terms of this bizarre maps where the Chinese seem to be claiming sovereignty over territory that is not even under their control? How should India and the other nations in the neighborhood, in fact, react to this cartographic expansion by the Chinese?
These countries have to get together and oppose Chinese aggrandizement. We have seen the Philippines try to go about it in a peaceful manner by going for international arbitration, but China rejected the arbitration. Now, China is a permanent member of the Security Council. It is supposed to maintain or help in the maintaining of international peace and security, but it refused to accept international mediation arbitration in the case of the dispute proffered by the Philippines. Now, these countries in South Asia are extremely small. They're not in a position to take on China, so they require alliances with countries like America or other countries. Even India, we have had one defeat to China a long time back. Today, we are much stronger. Nevertheless, China is a very powerful country. So for defense against China, the countries around China have to get together to oppose China's aggrandizement.
Right.
Because the people of China must understand that this policy is going to cost it not only in terms of its reputation, but also militarily.
Absolutely. And my last question to you, Ambassador, is this. Now, Chinese President Xi Jinping is unlikely to attend the G20 summit in New Delhi. We saw the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President, in fact, meet on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg just a few days back. And according to reports that have come in, the two leaders reportedly spoke about the friction points along the line of actual control. And the Chinese leader agreed that China is, in fact, willing to resolve the flash points at the line of actual control. Do you think China's intentions are even bona fide when they say that they want to resolve the conflict at the line of actual control?
I don't think so at all. There have been differences of opinion or differences of the statements of the two sides have been different as to who asked for the meeting, what transpired, was it a meeting at all, was just a conversation, as our spokesman said. So there are differences of perception and interpretation on both sides. The fact remains that after 19 rounds of talks by our military personnel, including at the level of generals, there has been no progress, and China simply refuses to withdraw from places that it has occupied over the last 5 years. Now, until it does that, it cannot expect relations to become normal. And as far as President Xi Jinping not coming to India is concerned, one can see that he does not like to see India play an important role on the world stage. So while he would expect India to turn up at the meetings of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS, when it comes to India playing the presidency of G20, Xi Jinping does not want to come and play second fiddle here. So we have to see what kind of an attitude he has towards India and frame our policies accordingly.
Absolutely, indeed. I think that's summed up really well. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Sinha, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.